Hello again and welcome to the Morning Mondays. This is episode 93, and this week, guys, I am happy to announce that I have completed the Priest for 4th Platoon. Absolutely love this model. It's actually one of the characters from Blackstone Fortress, and it was just a pleasure to paint. It's nice to just paint one of the more modern sculpts. One of the things that I've noticed with my Mordian restoration project is it's certainly whilst those old guards models are fantastic and really good for converting things, occasionally when you dip your toe into the more modern sculpts, you do really get an appreciation for how far some of the Games Workshop molds and sculpts have come. And this guy, when even amongst the hundreds of other models and characters that I've painted for the Mordian reference, he stands out. There's just something about his dynamic posing, about the way the robes flow and all that kind of stuff. You can notice it when you put the models side by side. Also, he's slightly bigger as well. Now, I'm not just talking that, he's a slightly, how shall we say, more portly gentleman, as many of my characters do happen to show off evidence of good living. But I'm talking about generally, he is taller, his proportions are bigger than some of the older sculpts. So it's just interesting to notice that when you're painting this kind of these kind of models up. Now, I'd say, like I said, I really enjoyed painting this model. And I'm really enjoying that the characters fit in alongside the rest of the regiment. I know there's a tendency, and especially it can be considered sort of fluff correct, to have the characters like the priests and the commissars and stuff not painted in the same colours as the main regiment, because they are technically outside of it. But I just prefer the cohesiveness, and it fits in with my Mordian fluff, that they're sort of semi under the control. At the very least, they're being guided by the ecclesiarchy to atone for their sins, and they're definitely being under the stern gaze of the commissariat. So I kind of like that, though, that all the models, my priests and all that, they do have a matching colour scheme. I like it for the fluff, and I like it for the armour cohesiveness. I like the way it looks on the tabletop when everyone is matching. I'm a Mordian at heart. I like nice matching uniforms and colour schemes. That's just the way I like things. Disadvantages, though, of course, that when you're playing an actual game, it can be tricky for your opponent to pick out which characters where. But I've sort of started getting around this by, I've got some base extenders and I paint them in like a blue or like a red colour, so that it's easy for my opponent to see where my officers are in amongst the ranks of little green army men. Of course, I don't use the extended base size for any auras or anything. I still measure to the inner circle. It's purely just for identifying purposes. But yeah, so I really enjoy painting model. He's one of the old Blackstone Fortress ones. There was a couple of Blackstone Fortress models you could get. You could get like the crazy redemptionist person who had like the Eviscerator Heavy Flamer combo, and you could get this chap as well. Both of which are still fairly readily available on eBay. They're quite popular models, and for a time, especially when Blackstone Fortress was really popular, you saw people painting loads of these guys, of this model up on the internet, along with all the other Blackstone Fortress ones. But amazingly, I've never actually seen someone use this particular priest model in anger. I've never seen one on tabletop, so not that I can remember, anyway. So yeah, I really like it. I think it's a very good modern priest sculpt. I think it's a bit of a shame that Games Workshop doesn't sell, and never got around to selling, the Blackstone Fortress characters individually. I think this one would have been perfect as a replacement priest model for the old metal, because currently the only options is to buy like the old metal ones or go to Age of Sigmar, and the Age of Sigmar ones don't really fit in. Not really. So yeah, a bit of a shame, but hey, these guys are readily available on eBay. You used to be able to get them for dirt cheap. I'm talking like between £3 and £5. Now I think you're probably looking at about a tenner for one of these models, but still, I highly recommend it. Well worth it. Goes together very easily. It's only a couple of parts, like the book, and basically the front and the back go together, and that's it. So yeah, it's a really easy model to put together, and it's a beautiful sculpt. Now, in terms of what does this mean for the restoration project, bringing the scope out a little bit. With this priest completed, we are looking at basically the completion of 4th Platoon. So I have all the command elements done now. I've got the 2 officers, I have got the commissar, and I've got the priest for that platoon done. I've also got 6 infantry squads finished, and the veteran squad finished as well. Now, if I was following the traditional pattern of the Great Mortar Restoration Project, at this point I would start working on the auxiliary section of the of the platoon, like Ogrins and Bulgrins and Psykers and Ratlings. That's where I would start looking, and I would also start thinking about getting a heavy weapon squad for the platoon. However, I'm not going to go down that route just yet. You see, the whole point of the Great Mordian Restoration project is that it's meant to be me clearing my backlog and restoring my current models to their former glory. And so I don't want to go out and add to that backlog. So I don't have any more auxiliary models to paint up. I painted the Crusaders for the Scions, and if you want to say I've done they could be the auxiliary part for this army, that's fine, but they're not. They are part of my Scion force. But I paint, I don't want to go out and buy Ratlings, because that essentially was going to add on a week or two to the restoration project, and I want to make progress on clearing what I already have. So actually, I'm not going to go out there, and I'm not going to, add an auxiliary part to this detachment, to this platoon yet. That will come later when we take part in the Great Mordian expansion project, which is something I've been playing around with for a while, and I'll just touch on it here. Essentially, I've already sort of got the models out, what I've got left, lined them up, and I reckon that there's going to be, for lack of a better term, some scraps left over. There's going to be a good chance that I'm going to have too many special weapons, or not enough, or too many officers, and whatnot. And so the plan would be, once I've painted up all of my current models, I'm going to go and need to buy like a box of infantry here, a box of guys there, and I'm going to need to do that so that I can take those scraps and turn them into cohesive units. To be fair, spare special weapons are going to be just folded into loads of special weapon squads and command squads, and the same is going to go for heavy weapon squads. Now, speaking of heavy weapon squads, what I actually am working on at the moment is 3 heavy bolters for my Mordians, and I've actually, unfortunately, didn't have them quite ready for this week. They'll be ready for next week, but I have done most of the painting and washes on them, and all I've really got left to do is the edge highlighting and basing. Now, I could use those as the heavy weapon teams for 4th Platoon, but what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use those heavy weapon teams and I'm going to add them into infantry squads. Now, the reason I want to add them into current infantry squads is because ideally I want every infantry squad to have a heavy weapon. That's the current thinking that I'm going down. And what that does is it frees up 6 more riflemen. Now, that's really important, because it frees up 6 more riflemen, which will then allow me to add a sergeant and a grenade launcher, or another special weapon, and another heavy weapon, and I'll have another squad. So by painting up these 3 heavy bolters, all I need to do is then paint up another heavy weapon team. I've already got a sergeant painted, so a heavy weapon team and a special weapon team, and I've got another squad. And what that allows me to do is start working on 5th Platoon. Now, interestingly, crazy as it is, guys, I kind of already have 5th Platoon done. Because I was mentioning this last week, I'm having a little think about reorganising and restructuring the Mordian 50th Rifles. When I first started the project, I had this idea of having a platoon, and the platoon would sort of mirror the current battalion detachment within 8th, well, what was 8th edition now, 9th edition. The plan is actually to go a bit more lore accurate than that, and that's just because I just forgot. I just assumed that you could take 6 infantry squads in one of the old platoons in the old codexes. Turns out actually infantry platoons were 2 to 5 squads of infantry. So I want my army to reflect that old platoon structure. I want it to be a reference, a nod to the old lore, the old fluff that you've got for your army. So what I'm actually going to do is, out of these 4 platoons that I've just completed, I'm going to take a squad out of each one of them. I'm going to take a squad out of each one, and that will give me 4 infantry squads straight away. And then with these heavy bolters that I was just mentioning, that will free up enough riflemen that I'll almost have another squad ready. And what that will actually allow me to do is, under this reorganisation, in a very short amount of time, via some restructuring, I'm actually going to have 5th Platoon ready as well. And that's actually pretty big. Now, obviously, I do understand that's kind of fudging the numbers slightly. It feels like I've just created a platoon out of thin air, but I haven't, and I have been thinking about this for a long time. It's just a few more models, but restructured will allow me to get that 5th Platoon, which gets us well on the way to completing the 2nd company of the Mordians. Now this is interesting because guess what? I've just been, well not just now, but over the last week or so, I've been stripping down loads of my old metal Mordians, and I actually have another 50 with officers, with commissars, with priests, with heavy weapons. I have another 50-man platoon ready to be painted. All classic metal Mordians. I haven't done any classic metal Mordians in a long time. I've been really focused on smashing the plastic models so I can use plastic models at tournaments. But I've basically cleared, this is kind of scary guys, outside of what I would term scraps, I've kind of cleared all my plastic Cadians. That's a huge milestone for this project. There are still probably about 20 or 30 very special weapons, heavy weapons and whatnot that will need stripping and restoring and whatnot. But in terms of main infantry squads, there's not too much left. There's probably another, like I said, 30 or so infantry squads that I can pull together from my old Cadians. Maybe a few more, but there's not too many left. Definitely broken the back of that part. So really, very quickly, I'm hoping get these heavy bolters done, get the next platoon of metal Mordians done, and I'm hoping by the end of this year, if not, that's giving me a lot of leeway. But bear in mind there are a lot of tournaments on and Black Templars are coming out and stuff like that. But I'm hoping by the end of this year, I'll have the second company completed for the Mordian 50s rifles. And that means I only have one company left. And then I'll have the full regiment. I'll have a battalion, and that'll be enough for a regiment. So we're actually close. Now in terms of that third company, I actually have plans, and I think I'm pretty close to that as well. So for that third company, I'm thinking, well, I've got to have one of those platoons in that third company is going to be made up of the Assault Corps, which is all my old classic metal stormtroopers, and there's going to be a platoon's worth of those metal stormtroopers to go through, at least 50, maybe more. So I'll have that. That'll cover one of those platoons, and then I have all the veteran squads. Now my intention is to still get 5 veteran squads painted up, and I've got 4 done. So if I can get another veteran squad done and get associated officers and command squads and stuff with that, that'll be another platoon finished. And what you're looking at there, guys, is actually, and I've already got 40 out of 50 veterans completed. I've already got 25 or 30, out of 50 or 60 stormtroopers done. So we're actually really close to the end of the project. I would be, my aim, depending on what armies come out, and if I can just focus on this project, my aim is to have this project wrapped up within the next, well, we don't know. I don't want to say it. I would like it to be completely finished by the end of next year. And I have been doing it for like 2 years already, but maybe it'll be sooner than that. If I can just focus on getting the Mordians done, then I should be able to get the Great Mordian Restoration Project wrapped up. The end is in sight. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm super excited for it. Super excited for it. Now, I mentioned the Great Mordian Expansion Project. I'm just going to go over that again, talking about these scraps. I've gone through some of the models that I've got left, and like I said, there's a lot of special weapons left over. So what we'll probably find is the Great Mordian Restoration Expansion Project won't be anywhere near as big as the Great Mordian Restoration Project, because the Great Mordian, because the Expansion Project will just be adding, basically a special weapons squad or 2 to each platoon. Any spare heavy weapons, adding a heavy weapons squad to each platoon and stuff like that. So even the Assault Corps ones, stuff like that, whatever, we'll have some Scion heavy weapons. I'll make them, I don't mind, kind of thing. So we'll see how it goes, obviously. So it's going to be interesting. To say the least, it's going to be interesting. So we are at the end of the tunnel. I would say we're well over the halfway point at this stage. Now, there is a bit of an elephant in the room. When all my infantry is completed, and I have the infantry regiment completed, I still have a shitload of tanks. I still have a lot. I still have. probably got 8 Lehman Russes, 3 or 4 Hellhounds, 3 or 4 Sentinels, a couple of Basilisks. Oh yeah, and 3 Baneblades that are going to need completing for the armour. And, oh God knows, like, 6 or 7 Chimeras as well. So, it's, the infantry is almost done, but what I tend to find is vehicles can be painted much quicker than infantry. But we'll see. We'll see. It's crazy. Some of those models I've just been sat in the backlog for years at this point. And so it's just, it's mad, but we're almost at the end of the infantry. So the end of, who knows? Depending on how the project goes, we might have the whole thing, including tanks, finished by the end of next year. That gives us 15 months. If I can get a unit done a week, then that's 75 weeks, 75 units. It's possible. It's definitely possible. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Of course, as always, tell me what you guys have been working on. Have anyone else done this priest model? Let me know. Put a link to like a picture or like a Facebook post or something down in the comments below. I'd like to see what other people have done with their armies. And of course, let me know how your campaigning and battling and hobbying and all that good guard stuff is going. And even if you're not a guard player, please still let me know, because I just love reading about all Warhammer things. I also want to say a massive thank you to the Patreon supporters of the Mordian Glory channel. It is thanks to the generous support of the Patreons that I'm able to keep this project going. It's actually one of the first projects, and one of the reasons I set up my Patreon was to do the Great Mordian Restoration project. So massive thank you from the bottom of my heart to all the Patreon supporters. It's thanks to you guys that I'm able to get the equipment and the painting and some of these unique models and all that kind of stuff, and I'm able to do that and just really bring the Mordian 50 rifles to life. So huge thank you to my Patreon supporters, and if you are interested in becoming one, there will be a link down in the description below. Anyway, without further ado, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.